Alright boys, here we go, fast and loose. This is Bobby with Spitting the Truth About Records. Today I'm going to go over some of the analog productions or reissues that I own. And I'll tell you whether I think that they are worth you picking up or not. Here we go. Cat Stevens, T for the Tillerman. Now, this one had gotten a lot of bad reviews from a lot of people saying that it is too bright. Me, I'm not one of them. This record is, normally pretty bright from the guitars that he uses, the 12 strings. If you've ever heard a 12-string guitar, they're pretty bright. Now, they chose to use the original pink label on this one that the UK used. Nice choice. Like all analog productions, they give you the best Staunton tip jacket, high gloss, high quality. Merino mastered this. Some people have really not liked this. I tend to like it. This one is decent. It is not better than the A&M brown labels or the original UK pressings, the Lee Halco cut, but once again, it's like a preference call. This one's a good version and it's probably worth picking up if you're a fan of T for the Tillerman. Doors, LA Woman at 45 RPMs. Now, the only reason I bought this record was from Mike from the In Groove had recommended this and said that you wouldn't hear IGD on Riders of the Storm or LA Woman. He was right. Those two songs are an important part of this album. And having it spread over two LPs made a difference. Does this one sound better than the probably 5 or 6 copy of US originals that I have and my German one? It beats the German. The originals, it's a preference call. But I will say that Riders of the Storm and LA Woman, just those two songs, sound phenomenal on this, and those two songs sound better than they do on the original pressings. Doors, LA Woman at 45 RPM. This one is worth your money, guys. You should pick this one up while it's still in print. Buddy Holly, the Chirping Crickets. Now this one is tough for me to say whether it's better than the OG pressings that are out there, because the OG pressings that are out there cost an arm and a leg. So I cannot comment on it. All I can comment on, I have a Buddy Holly box set cut by Steve Hoffman and Kevin Gray in the 80s, 90s. And some of the songs on this one, like Oh Boy, Not Fade Away, and Maybe Baby, That'll Be the Day, they sound just as good as they did on that Steve Hoffman set. So this is worth picking up if you're a Buddy Holly fan. And if you're not a Buddy Holly fan, you should be. Pick it up. Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble, Texas Flood, cut at 45 RPM. Now, this record I have gone back and forth about because I believe Ryan K. Smith cut it. And Ryan K. Smith is one of my favorite mastering engineers. But on this particular version, for some reason, they smoothed out Stevie Ray Vaughan's guitar. Now, it's a preference call whether you like that or whether you don't. The bass is right where it needs to be on this one. The mids are perfect. It's just they smoothed out the high end a little too much for my liking. But with that being said, this still blows away the MoFi one-step and the other reissues that are out there. I just don't think it beats the best US originals. But it's worth picking up if you're a Stevie Ray Vaughan fan. The Beach Boys, Surfer Girl, cut by Kevin Gray. 33 RPM mono. This is the mono version. This is not the stereo. I chose to not go for the stereo versions because they were cut from digital files, and if I want digital files, I'll buy the CD or I'll buy the file. But in this case, the Surfer Girls Beach Boy monos by Kevin Gray sounds indistinguishable from my original pressings on Capitol. They did a phenomenal job with this one. This one is worth your money. The Beach Boys, Surfer Girl. More Beach Boys up ahead. The Beach Boys, Pet Sounds, mono. Once again, not stereo. This one, fellas, it's a big letdown. I don't know what they did wrong with it, but they chopped the top end off of this. They smoothed it out too much, and it just sounds dull, lifeless, and flat as a pancake. I don't know what went wrong. Maybe the stereo is better, but this one is on the avoid list for Analog Productions. There are better versions out there, especially the twofer that was put out in the 70s. Miles Davis, Someday My Prince Will Come, cut by Ryan K. Smith. Now, I only have a 6i and a 70s press to compare with this, but I prefer this one. Ryan K. Smith did a wonderful job on this. Everything's right where it needs to be. Davis's trumpet sounds right. Coltrane's sax is good. Wynton Kelly's sounds right. This one is worth your money if you're a fan of Someday My Prince Will Come. Pick it up while it's still in print. Plus, the jacket, everything is phenomenal. And you got a beautiful picture of Miles' ex-wife. The Brubeck Quartet, Time Out. Famous album. And back in the 80s and 90s, this was a demo disc in all those audiophile shops. I personally would say if you want to get the best copy of this album, I would say stick with the Columbia 6i stereo copy, because I think that they sound better than this version. This version sounds a little too jazzed up for me, a little too smoothed out at the top end, and not to my liking. But that doesn't mean that some of you guys won't like this. This record was a great sounding recording, no matter how many records they put out on it. I mean, on every record that I have, whether it's a 70s press, 60s press, 50s press, I mean, they all sound decent. So I don't think you can go wrong with this. It's just not the best sounding copy, in my opinion. Doors, self-titled at 45 RPM. This one is another one that was recommended by Mike from the In Groove. I picked it up because, hey, who wants to hear the end without distortion or inner groove distortion? I think they did a good job with this one, being that it was cut from a tape copy. This one, you know, the original pressings, this album was never really a great sounding recording to begin with. So, I mean, to me, this is the best this album is going to sound. If you're a fan of the Doors self-titled, grab this one. I think this is the best that you can get. The red labels and the tan labels that I have don't sound better than this. They just don't. Sarah McLachlan, Surfacing, 45 RPM. Now, the hits off this record are Building a Mystery, Sweet Surrender, and Adia. There's not many of these records out there, other pressings that are available, so I think it's pretty safe to say that this one is king. If you're a Sarah McLachlan fan and Surfacing is one of your favorite albums, pick this one up. Don't hesitate. Next up, Counting Crows, August, and Everything After. This is a great album. What's not to like about it? Round Here, Omaha, Mr. Jones, Time and Time Again, Ghost Train. Once again, it's another thing. It's a 90s record, so there wasn't a lot of 90s vinyl pressings out there to compare. And I believe this might be the only one that is cut to tape. So once again, I can wholeheartedly recommend Counting Crows, August, and Everything After. This is probably the best pressing of this record that is out there. In my opinion, you like Counting Crows, you should pick this one up. That's all the that's all the Analog Productions that I have in my collection. But with all those records that I do have, I'd say that's probably about 85% success rate, which is a hell of a lot better than Mobile Fidelity's. Mobile Fidelity in the past, actually since they have opened up their doors in like the early 70s or whatever, I'd say that their failure rate is probably, 85%. 85% of their records sound horrible. I've never been a Mobile Fidelity fan. Analog Productions has done it better than them. Classic records, I have a few classic records, in my collection, but once again, I think Analog Productions does a better job than Classic Records. Out of the audiophile labels, I'd say Analog Productions is probably king. But that's all I have for you today, and I'll see you guys soon with some more videos. Thank you guys. Have a great day.